Welcome, everybody. I'm Jabby Kuwait, joined by Steph Sabra.
Hello.
What up, brah?
What up?
Welcome back, finally.
Yes.
I mean, to you guys, it looks like she's been here the whole time, but she actually hasn't been here in weeks because of COVID and stuff, busyness. Anyway, why Phase 4 matters. Marvel's true meaning revealed. From ScreenCrush, thank you, ScreenCrush, for allowing us to react to this. Very, very much appreciated. Very excited to look at this video because, you know, Phase 4 has been one of the most questionable phases of all time because people are like, I don't get the point of this. What's the point of Phase 4? And so I'm very excited to see what he has to say here. I like glanced at the comments just to see what people's feelings were, just to gauge it. And people were like, oh, okay, this really gives some insight because people didn't love Phase 1 initially. I'm like, I don't know if that's true, but I'm excited to see what he has to say. So if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, bell icon, all notifications, and pretty please vote this up. Let YouTube know you're enjoying what you're watching. And while you're subscribing up, buddy, subscribe to ScreenCrush. And yeah, there's a link in the description below for the video we're about to watch. If you want to click on that, give the original upvote, subscribe to him from there, and follow Steph Sabra on the social media. She would appreciate that. Here we go.
This is. What? This is boring.
$10 says you're wrong.
Hey, welcome to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, and I want to talk to you about Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Specifically, I want to prove to all of you that this phase, which may seem like it's just made up of random projects, is actually telling one cohesive story that is united by a single theme. Like the MCU always says, it's all connected. So, Phase 4 has been a weird one. It's the first time Marvel Studios has fully incorporated TV shows into their storytelling. Now, we've previously had shows like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. incorporate the movies into their stories, like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s brilliant follow-up episodes to The Winter Soldier.
Hail Hydra.
Hail Hydra! But Phase 4 is the first time that any cinematic universe has really fully incorporated TV shows.
But wait a minute, Ezra Miller's Flash did show up on the CW.
Yes, true, but as part of the multiverse, so...
Doesn't count.
Anyways, we're gonna get to the multiverse in just a few minutes. First, I want to address why people feel like this phase has been so aimless. I started really seeing this complaint after Thor: Love and Thunder. Most of Phase 4's projects up till then told solo, standalone stories. For instance, Black Widow, The Eternals, Shang-Chi, and What If. And there were also plenty of stories that dealt with the repercussions of Phase 3, like WandaVision, Hawkeye, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and Loki. Now, these projects defined the phase's first year, 2021. But 2021 ended with a massive multiversal crossover, teaming up Doctor Strange with Spider-Man, Spider-Man, and Spider-Man. So fans were ready for 2022 to feel more connected. They wanted to finally get those sweet, sweet MCU connections that we all love. And instead, we got mostly more standalone stories. Moon Knight, She-Hulk, Ms. Marvel, Multiverse of Madness, Werewolf by Night, The Guardians Holiday Special, and Thor: Love and Thunder are all standalone projects that tell a singular story about their main characters. Now, there was an expectation that Thor's movie would kick us off into high gear. Because he's an OG Avenger in a major motion picture, we thought that he was gonna meet Dr. Doom or Kang or something. But that didn't happen, did it?
No, it did not. Man, I wish I could go to the movies, but they always kick me out because I'm a little dog.
Real quick, there are so many predictions that would come out about Dr. Doom or villains or whatever, and I think that the best thing we can do is stop assuming that that is going to happen. When have we ever been right, or not me, but like the people who are in the know about what's supposed to come, when have they ever been right about what villain is supposed to arrive? It's always been dissatisfying, especially Dr. Doom or Mephisto. Those are the two that keep coming up. I'm like, stop! You're making yourselves mad.
You're setting yourself up for failure. I agree.
Yeah, just take it for what it is, and it'll be all right. Eventually, they'll show up.
Now back to what I was saying. So after the intricate setup of the Infinity Saga, where every element served a purpose in the final story, it was hard to see the connective tissue between all these projects. How does She-Hulk connect to Thor: Love and Thunder? Now we're going to explain how, but first I have to say that we should not be holding Phase 4 up to the same standards as Phase 3. Phase 3 was a culmination of like 20 movies.
That's right.
It earned its crossover and connective tissue. We should really be comparing Phase 4 to Phase 1 or even Phase 2. And those phases were not very well connected in hindsight. Marvel Studios did not have a firm plan set in stone when they started out.
Stop listening after you said we need a plan.
Tony Stark's cameo at the end of The Incredible Hulk makes no sense.
What if I told you we were putting a team together?
They recast two main characters. Crossover moments were conceived of and then cut out, like Hulk breaking loose the ice where Steve Rogers was frozen. Even Thanos was included as a post-credit scene after the fact because Joss Whedon wanted to tease him for another movie. Even Selvig being mind-controlled by Loki at the end of Thor makes no sense in hindsight because Loki shows up to mind-control him in The Avengers. And Iron Man 2 was force-fed connective tissue as fast as the Marvel Creative Committee could write material. Now, look, The movies in Phase 1 were mostly good, but in hindsight, they don't hold up to projects like No Way Home or WandaVision. Phase 2 was a little better planned. It started to seed the Infinity Stones into the movies. The fall of S.H.I.E.L.D. did pave the way for the Avengers, and Tony's PTSD paved the way for the Age of Ultron. But really, it took 3 phases for every single project to lead into the next and to really come together. So think of Phase 4 as a foundation for this new multiversal saga. Now,
You know, that's actually a really, really good point. With him expanding on it, that makes a lot of sense to me because there are multiple movies in the first 3 phases where people were like, it's all right. Especially the Iron Man sequels, people were not happy about it. Avengers Age of Ultron, there were lots of people who were disappointed with that particular movie. So much so that I think that's what made Joss Whedon leave the MCU. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, but I think that was what was the catapult for him to get out. Because he was just like tired of the fans or whatever. And Thor, the second one, the Dark World, people didn't love it. You know, there was multiple films in there that people were just not happy with. But ultimately, it all culminates in like a familiarity with these characters to the point where when you experience loss with them or the potential to lose them in Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame, it's like you really feel it. Even though along the way, you didn't love all of their installments.
Yeah. Totally. It's not going to hit the same from a culmination movie than a singular movie.
Yeah.
Now, I do get how, even with that in mind, Phase 4 can still seem all random. The phase included moments like this.
Are you okay? Somebody help, I need an ambulance. Please, somebody.
And also like this.
Oh, you are way more fun than my last lawyer. I will kill for you, Megan Thee Stallion.
But if you step back, you can see a pattern. Every story can be grouped into one of 4 categories: multiverse, magic, street level, and cosmic. Just like in the comics where you have lines of X-Men books, Spider-Man books, horror books, etc. So Phase 4 laid the foundation for these mini universes that will have their own crossovers in Phase 5 and will eventually culminate in Phase 6. So let me run through these Phase 4 categories, how they connect, and how they can lead into the multiversal saga. And I'm also going to talk about the theme that unites every single story in this phase. First, let's talk about the most important group, the street level.
The street level? That's not more important than cosmic stuff like
I was thinking that for a
Yes,
second.
Doug, it is, because street level heroes give us the baseline. We can't be impressed by the powerful gods and wizards if there's no
that's
human
true.
being to compare them to. It's like that one time Bill Murray tweeted that they should have one regular person swimming at the Olympics just to show how impressive all the athletes are. Like Hawkeye is a crucial character to have in the Avengers. Remember that montage of how he lost his hearing?
What happened?
That makes him seem all the more heroic because he's just a guy.
Well, my go-to weapon is 2 sticks and string, so.
The MCU needs guys who are more like John McClane in Die Hard 1. So the street level
true.
heroes can have powers, but they also deal with events that just happen on Earth. So Hawkeye was just about street level crime. Black Widow is about world domination. Falcon and the Winter Soldier was about terrorism. She-Hulk was about the repercussions that superheroics have on everyday people's lives. And Wakanda Forever set up a global conflict between the Black Panther and the Thunderbolts. And, according to Kevin Feige, Spider-Man is also now grouped in with those street level people as well.
We've got the street level with our announcement of Daredevil, and of course Spidey going into the street level heroes.
I think these events will end up feeding into a conflict that's like Captain America's Civil War. Remember, that was a movie where all the stakes were tied to Earth, capturing Bucky.
Yo, legit, I'm getting goosebumps off of what he's talking about here. Because I'm like, this is exactly what I've been saying this entire time. People are like, I'm getting Marvel fatigue. I think that Marvel's coming to an end. I'm like, bitches, y'all are crazy. This is just getting started. This is just the beginning of of several chapters to come. So calm down. It'll get better. Jesus.
Street level.
I love street level. I mean, I was waiting for him to talk about Daredevil, then I realized that's not really part of Kevin Feige's like master plan.
Yeah.
But like, I wish that it was,
Because that's one of your favorite shows ever.
that's the best. To me, like nothing tops Daredevil.
Bucky Barnes, the Sokovia Accords, and then the breaking up of the Avengers. But all those Earth-bound events had repercussions for the greater cosmic saga. I think that movies like New World Order, Wakanda Forever, and the Thunderbolts are setting up a conflict in Phase 5 that will make the Earth unable to respond to the big threats. And I outlined a lot of those theories in this video. Next group we have is magic, which is anything that connects the Earth stories with the other dimensions and mysticism. Now these are pretty easy to spot. Werewolf by Night, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, WandaVision, and Moon Knight. Now we speculated before that this could all lead into a team-up with a group like the Midnight Suns, as Marvel makes more and more horror-adjacent projects like Blade and Coven of Chaos. Most of these projects have connections to the Multiverse saga. Multiverse of Madness obviously geared us up toward the multiverse and introduced the idea of incursions, which will play a huge role in Secret Wars. Remember, an incursion is when 2 universes collide and one must be destroyed to save the other. We even got a tease that Steven was gonna go off fixing incursions with Charlize Theron.
You caused an incursion.
and we're gonna fix it.
Werewolf by Night featured the Man-Thing, and in the comics, the Man-Thing lives in a swamp that is the nexus of all realities, basically a multiversal junction point. WandaVision obviously affected the multiverse because Wanda's actions in that show led to Multiverse of Madness and Doctor Strange causing an incursion by dreamwalking. WandaVision also set up Agatha Coven of Chaos, which just cast Joe Locke as a character who's probably the teenage version of Wanda's son Billy. In the comics, Billy is the hero Wiccan, and of course he is a member of the Young Avengers, and there have been a lot of Avengers being set up in the MCU right now. In the comics, the Young Avengers connect heavily to Kang the Conqueror, obviously the big bad of the Multiverse saga, and Billy plays a crucial role in that. Next, we have cosmic stories. WandaVision introduced...
You know what's interesting is this is just telling me how all the big films to come are setting up a new generation of young heroes and actors. I know you haven't watched it yet, you're watching it tonight, which is Avatar: The Way of Water, but that film focuses heavily on the kids. And I think that's very smart because you're going to be building out their stories in the movies to come. So the same thing is happening here where you're slowly like retiring the elderly actors, the older actors, in favor of these new young Avengers, young Titans, whatever. I know Titans aren't part of this, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Fleshing that out because that's what the money is, baby. It's all the young people.
Yeah, especially in the next few phases.
Yeah.
Use this in Phase 4 with the agency's Sword and Monica Rambeau getting powers.
He heard you've been grounded. He'd like to meet with you.
Where?
The Eternals is a very cosmic story that connects with gods and the creation of the universe. Now I'm betting that the Celestials and the Eternals will play a big role in the Multiversal War and potentially creating a brand new reboot universe at the end of Phase 6. Thor: Love and Thunder is another cosmic movie that introduces another potential young Avenger, Love, while also introducing more gods into the MCU, including the Avenger Hercules. And both Shang-Chi and Ms. Marvel started off as street-level stories before expanding into a hybrid of magical or cosmic stories. Kamala Khan's story sets up the Marvels and probably Secret Invasion, while Shang-Chi's 10 Rings beacon at the end is probably connected to Kang, like we covered in a couple of different videos. And finally, we have the last category, which actually ties together all of these movies and the entire saga. Multiverse. Now I think we'll look back and say that Loki was actually the most important story told in Phase 4, and actually in the whole Multiverse saga. It's the movie with the most direct link to Phase 3. After all, its main character's origin happens during Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
And it set up the idea of the multiverse, connects the multiverse to time travel with the idea of branching realities, and introduced a variant of the new big bad, Kang.
Some of us, new worlds meant only one thing, new lands to be conquered. The peace between realities erupted.
Kevin Feige did confirm that the events of Loki started it all.
Loki and Sylvie did something at the end of that series that sort of allowed all of this to be possible.
Loki caused the
I'm loving all this. I just wish that they would have a clearer definition or, of the nomenclature. Like, I wish the nomenclature was more clearly defined, because the way they use the word alternate dimension, alternate universe, timeline, all that stuff, I think it's kind of muddied the waters a little bit to the point of unnecessary confusion. If they would just have some kind of consistency, it messes me up. I'm not like well versed in science. I'm pedestrian, but like I have some understanding of those things, a cursory understanding of those things, and I'm like, what? It doesn't add up. It doesn't make any sense. You're just confusing me now.
Do you think they're following something that should make sense if you really explained it, or do you think they're making their own rules?
I think that they're using words interchangeably that they should not.
Okay.
I think that's the problem. And it's like, no, those are two different ideas completely. It's fun what they're doing, but they really need to get a hold on that. Like back in the day, George Lucas, I forgot exactly what it was, but it was something like, we can travel like 12 parsecs in something seconds. That word used in that way is actually incorrect English, apparently. I'm not sure exactly what it was. It's something like that. Any Star Wars heads in the comments will let me know exactly what I mean by that. Traveling 12 parsecs doesn't make any sense, apparently.
Multiverse to splinter and opened the door up for Kang and the Multiverse saga. Now, What If showed us the consequences of losing the sacred timeline with infinite new universes being created.
There. That's the moment that created a new universe.
Spider-Man No Way Home brought the idea of variants from other franchises into the MCU and showed that other hero franchises could cross into the movies. And the Multiverse of Madness set up incursions, setting up wars between these universes. And also, like half the movies and shows in this phase featured Wonk.
Yeah, it's true.
Also, it's a good thing that Marvel is more focused on quality standalone stories and not like forcing crossovers on us, because that's how you get this.
I think a bunch of guys like us should team up, could do some good.
Intriguing.
Now all this is just kind of surface level stuff and, like based partly in theory. But guys, this is ScreenCrush, and you come here for a little bit more substance than that. So now I want to talk about how every single project in Phase 4 is connected by a central theme that guides the characters.
Daddy issues?
No, Doug, you're thinking of Phases 1 through 3.
Yeah. Oh, right. High five anyways.
High five. And by the way, everybody, I love mentioning this. We now have Doug Christmas ornaments for sale at our merch store. They're high quality. I think they're made of ceramic. They're
I would actually pick that up. I love
plastic.
Doug.
And we have a lot of great new items there for you to check out, including some t-shirts like our Not the Beast shirt, original trilogy shirt, the When Harry Met Sally opening crawl, and this new top 5 shirt where you can fill in your top 5 movies with a Sharpie marker. So if you want to bring Doug home for the holidays, visit our merch store at shopzeroedition.com. So back to the theme of Phase 4. According to ScreenCrush editor-in-chief Matt Singer, what actually unites all of these projects is the quest for identity. Matt wrote a great piece on this that I'm going to link below, and I'm also going to quote him quite a bit from here on out. He writes, over and over, Phase 4 heroes and even a few villains have wrestled with the existential questions like, who am I? Who do I want to be? Am I bound to continue with the choices I've made thus far in my story? Or can I change my path? And
interesting.
Matt goes on to say that the idea of struggling with identity goes hand in hand with the multiverse, where there exists an infinite number of variations of every single person. A good Doctor Strange, an evil Doctor Strange, a zombie Doctor Strange, and so on.
I'm out there. I had a ponytail.
These variants, as Marvel calls them, allow the studio to turn allegorical identity crises into literal battles for the future of the MCU.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, every story's about that?
Yes, let's break it down one at a time.
That's super cool, actually. I feel like this fits really, really well within our time because of 2020. We're all forced to stay at home. I feel like a lot of us, grown-ups at the very least, we're questioning our own existence and our own, like, what are we doing with our lives? So many people quit their jobs because they realized, oh, this is bullshit.
I thought he was going to say grief, because that's kind of what I thought this phase has been about with most characters, but I like this is better, actually. It's more relatable, I feel like, to most viewers. Everyone has this, like you're saying, this moment where you're like, who am I? Is this how I want to live? What do I want to do with my life?
I think grief is definitely a theme, and hopefully he'll bring that up, because grief is also something a lot of people dealt with in 2020, including myself. I lost my grandma. I think you're right. Grief is a big theme. We'll see if he brings it up.
WandaVision. She creates this television identity to hide from the pain of her actual identity, and eventually she does create a new identity for herself as she embraces the new identity as the Scarlet Witch. Vision also doesn't know who he is. He is a memory of Wanda's or an echo of her perception of him. Eventually, he confronts another version of himself who also has no identity, and the two kind of become one new person.
I am Vision.
Falcon and the Winter Soldier is about Sam struggling to take on the identity of Captain America, and Bucky struggling to figure out who he is now that he is no longer the Winter Soldier. Loki introduces the idea of variants, literal other identities that are out there in the multiverse. Now this new version of Loki is struggling to find out what makes him special and different against the other infinite versions of himself. The series also ends with Loki and the other Loki confronting the alternate identity of the big bad villain, Kang. Black Widow is about former assassins and government servants trying to redefine their identities after blindly serving a government for years. Dreykov's daughter has even had her identity suppressed for decades until Natasha helps her regain herself. What If, like Matt says in his piece, is very literal. The series is about alternate identities of the heroes, including zombies. In Shang-Chi, the hero begins with a fake identity that he's made for himself.
You changed your name from Shang to Sean?
And he is running away from his old life and his father's legacy of the Ten Rings. He is struggling to find out who he is as a son of both Ta Lo and this evil criminal organization. He's trying to figure out what identity defines me. For the Eternals, I'll read from Matt's piece. The Eternals are immortal beings of enormous power. The film suggests that these ancient heroes have gone by many identities throughout their long lives and have been worshipped by various historical peoples as gods. Thanks, Matt. And the Eternals also did realize that they are just endless copies of a single model, and that their unique identities that they create on these planets have been erased countless times.
So you're saying we're basically fancy robots?
So they must decide if they're going to serve the Celestials or fight them to retain their new sense of self.
Yeah, I guess you're right. All others are about it.
But wait, there's more. Hawkeye is about Clint trying to bury his identity as Ronin and handing the identity of Hawkeye over to Kate Bishop. Matt calls Spider-Man No Way Home a literal take on the identity crisis, with Tom Holland's Spider-Man coming face to face with alternate versions of himself from throughout the multiverse. And the movie ends with Peter losing his private identity and reinventing his public identity as a new Spider-Man. And Moon Knight
literally struggles with 4 identities.
Hey, now you're getting it. In Multiverse of Madness, Doctor Strange meets variants of himself that have wildly different identities based on different life experiences. Now, all of these variants show him who he could have become if he wanders too far down the wrong path. So he has to literally choose what identity he wants to carry on with. In Ms. Marvel, Kamala Khan struggles with maintaining a kind of double life, that of a well-mannered Pakistani-American girl and a New Jersey fangirl who loves Carol Danvers. And later, it's about her identity as a Djinn and reconciling the historical trauma of the partition, itself a kind of identity crisis for South Asia. In Thor: Love and Thunder,
that last one was a little bit hard. That was a bit of a stretch for me. Because like a lot of what was talked about in, not the partition part, but the part of her leading the double life, I'm like, well, how is that different from any other superhero? You know what I mean?
And teenager. Yeah.
And teenage, yeah. Like I feel like that's a very common thread through all superhero films. But
yeah.
I get it.
Thunder, he begins the movie on a journey of self-discovery, trying to define what his identity should be. Meanwhile, Jane
that's
Foster
definitely
takes
in line
up the
with
name
it.
of Thor, usurping his identity, while Valkyrie struggles with her new identity as a world leader. She-Hulk, according to Matt's piece, spends several episodes fighting with Titania over who owns the right to the identity of She-Hulk. Jennifer also internally wrestles with her new double identities. At first, she only wants to be Jen, but then comes to embrace the She-Hulk persona because it's so much fun. Now, Werewolf by Night is 100% about a guy trying to hide his identity from others before he turns into a monster. Jack Russell also has to constantly struggle with who he is, the man or the monster. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever is about the heroes in Wakanda.
I didn't realize his name was Jack Russell. That went over my head, which is the name of a dog.
Oh, yeah.
An animal. A cute one. That's hilarious.
Funny.
I didn't even think about that.
Forever is about the heroes in Wakanda struggling with their national identity, and Shuri eventually taking on the identity of Black Panther. The death of the original Black Panther star Chadwick Boseman turned the sequel into a movie about legacy and identity. And finally, the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special is about Peter Quill taking on a new identity as the manager of Nowhere, while Mantis and Drax confuse Kevin Bacon for his characters. In other words, they mistook the actor for his other identity.
Don't be someone else. Be Kevin Bacon, but like if you didn't suck.
Well, what do you guys think of Phase 4? What do you think about the identity theme? How do you think it's going to connect with the other phases? Let me know in the comments below or at me on Twitter.
I love Mantis, just really quickly.
Okay.
That was cool. Yeah, I actually like Phase 4.
Okay.
I have like a lot of love for it. I obviously don't think it's as fun as some of the other phases, but I think that's intended.
Okay.
And to his point, which I really appreciated, that it builds up to make it worth it. You can't just get to an end game without building it out, and I'm invested in all of the new characters that we've been introduced. I feel like when they do hit that end game for Phase 4, or when it comes, it'll be sick.
I think you're right. That's a tricky thing about starting over, because after you coming off the heels of something like Avengers Endgame, you're at such a high. It's almost like going into the sequel of a video game where, you know, at the end of the last game, you were supercharged and all superpowered, and then you go into the sequel and a lot of that is stripped from you, right? And that's just part of the process of playing a sequel video game, because you can't start at max level, then you have nowhere to go.
Right.
And I think that with the phases, you kind of have to look at it the same way. You can't start at that max level because then there's nowhere left to build towards. This is a great video to help like crystallize what the point is of all this, because even I, watching it, as optimistic as I am about Marvel and the direction they're taking things, even though I have my, you know, some of my reservations and grievances about what's happened so far, sometimes it's hard to see the forest from the trees. And watching this video helps you to go, oh, now I'm kind of seeing the trajectory of it all and it's starting to make sense. Anyone they've sort of lost along the way will come right back on the train once the subsequent chapters are rolling out and it all starts to come together. I still don't know that I'll ever look at She-Hulk with fonder eyes. Like, I know there's a number of you out there who love it, including my brother, which kind of blows my mind, because I watched his reaction to the last episode. I'm like, I don't even know how you got there. I was so frustrated. I'm so frustrated. Like, you liked it, didn't you?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Y'all are killing me. I don't get it.
I totally get the criticism of it.
Get on your mic.
I just liked it.
I get you. It's like, I try to, but the thing is, I'm happy that people liked it. I just don't understand. You know what I mean? I'm happy people liked it because a lot of people put their blood, sweat, and tears into that show. Just because I don't like it doesn't mean other people shouldn't like it. Like, I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad my brother liked it. I just don't understand it. It's not for me. But that being said, you know, what he was talking about in terms of identity, I'm like, oh, I see. Like, she was avoiding that identity. That works. I still don't like that as a story, but it works in terms of the cohesive narrative that's being told, you know?
Yeah.
I'm like, that's pretty dope that there's a theme running through it, and I just didn't see it.
I didn't see that with all of them either, because it's hard to even keep track about how many characters we've gotten introduced. But this video made me realize that the good news, the best news, is that I like every new character introduced. I love the characters, and that's what matters, right? When we move into these stories, like, we don't have to think the stories are perfect.
Yeah.
Eventually, that will be the best thing, but I feel like as long as they didn't, I can't imagine someone being like, I'm never watching Marvel again. Nothing's been that bad where like you can't look back at it.
It's so interesting because Steph comes off as like, well, with like your appearance and demeanor, you come off as more of like the darker, glasses half empty kind of person, but you're one of the most optimistic people I've ever met. Like, it's unbelievable how optimistic you are, because I certainly did not love all the characters in Eternals, for instance.
Oh, I did.
I'm like, oh God, I would, if I never had to watch this movie again, it'd be too soon. Like, I think I watched it twice and I was like, I definitely do not like this film.
Amazing.
The identity crisis thing, I could see what he was talking about there as well. I'm like, that all tracks. That's really, really cool. Anyway, we could drone on and on about it, or we can conclude the video here. So thanks so much for hanging out. Hopefully you guys enjoyed our reaction and his video and our thoughts. Thanks. Peace out.